Hi everyone, it's Maria from J'adore Papier. I am back today to show you a journal that I've just made following Jeanne Oliver's Gathered course. I found her on YouTube just recently. I'm not sure why it took me so long. I'll do a flip through. I thought about keeping this myself, but the journal itself is a little small. If you've seen my work before, I tend to like my large or extra large format journals and books. But I thought this was a good first start, and I was going to offer it up as a kit. So if you see this, it should be on my Etsy. Well, actually reach out to me. So this is my handmade journal. It was a very damaged book. The spine was already, broken through. And then I just started gathering things per Jeanne's course, things that I've made, sketched. In my case, a lot of antique papers from the 1800s, ledgers. My version of mark making will be sketches. I tried, you'll see it in the pages. And then I have this little ephemera kit here to go with it that actually has authentic photographs, like she said, to gather. If the ephemera, the papers from the 1830s, and then this photograph's from 1931. I'm not sure when this one is. From a family with their new graduate. And then some scraps, including some very cool black paper that I thought would be nice to do a grid of. It's actually something my nephew gave me, and that if you scratch on it, you could create your own print. So there are my initials there. I didn't want to ruin it for you. An authentic antique letter, French letter, also from the this one also is from 1950, excuse me. And then some of the ledger paper left over from the 1833 page that I included in there, scraps from a plate. You'll see an art plate in there. And then this over 200-year-old French fabric. I guess it qualifies as ticking maybe. And it was already falling apart. I thought I'd make some shams with it, but the fabric is super thin, so you'll see that in the spine. And then, of course, I wanted to give you a couple of mark-making sticks that came from my mom's garden. So the journal, the old book was 6 by 7.5, but the new book is about 9 by, I'd say, 6 1/4. With an expandable spine. So currently it's about 1.5 inches, but with the French link and some of the gaps that I built in, it probably could build out to about a 2-inch spine or 2-inch book. Ephemera right here. This is actually a vintage glassine bag, and in it are some special little items in here. Some little tags from the 1980s, a neighbor's ticket to a show, teeny tiny tags, a little mark making stick. It probably broke off of one of the plant stems there. And then this black tape here actually came from the book itself. So this is binding tape. A lot of libraries still use this one probably. I didn't buy any because it's on my wish list to have some black artist tape and binding tape. A couple of squares that you could use. This feather actually came from, embedded in that 200-year-old fabric, French fabric. It's odd because it was a solid, one giant piece, so I don't think they made any linens out of it. Some square pieces that you could use, some fusing fabric, and then some linen pieces that you could use in your grid, and various other items in there. So it's the original grungy book, and I did not remove the spine. In fact, I just made the spine part of the actual cover, and I left the tape on there because that's my favorite part. And again, it's my French link with Coptic stitch, no cover and no mull over it. So I still get a little nervous, but I figured this is an art journal, and if you have to use some of the tape that Jeanne uses in her video, she actually uses some of the drywall tapes that look pretty awesome. I had some shipping tape, and of course I used a lot of the French fabric and some of this antique document here to do some binding in the middle. So this is the original Town of Plymouth library sticker, I'd say. In here, I left exposed the 200-year-old French fabric. What you could do is, if it really bothers you, you could do some end papers, you know, over that top, and it'll really strengthen the book even more. So if you have some images that you've sketched or printed on thick watercolor paper, maybe you could do that. Let's see, just some really nice font. I think I got that from Sarah, Crafty Paper Bits. Here's the original discard cover table of contents. It kept breaking on me, so I tried to patch it with fabric, tried to patch it with some house paint. Wasn't working, so I went ahead and glued it to the this tracing paper. It's actually not tracing paper, it's the house plans that I've had before, used before. A lot of mostly coffee dyed and stained papers. A lot of them are really dark, and since Jeannie's course said use what you have in the house, what I have in the house is my mom's interior house paint instead of gesso. So I started painting. It gives a glossy sheen, in some cases eggshell, so if you want to, you could sandpaper that. Some of the original book pages are pretty brittle, like I mentioned, so I've backed them with this antique fabric, and these are natural rust stains, so those are not dirt. This has been washed twice over, even before I purchased it. The 1700s ledger that I tried to eco dye a little while ago, you could probably try to stitch and patch that up. I don't have any of my embroidery threads. This is the linen or the flax thread. It's very thick, that I used to bind the book, and as you could see, it has a very wiry feel, and it just wants to constantly bend. That's why a lot of your pages you'll see aren't necessarily, they don't have the naturally behaving threads that I usually use. They just want to keep bending. So you'll see gaps here, but that's not going to damage or mean that it's any less strong. It's just the natural nature of the linen, symbol of what I used to bind, and because it looked like a little flower about to bloom, maybe one of those violas or something. This is an example of the very dark pages I have from Sagita's Coffee Stains. I'm not sure, I think she rusted these, and they have a very nice sheen on it, but you will need to gesso if you want to paint on it. So this is my mom's interior house paint, and then I just put on multimedia paper some of my very loose sketches without lifting my paintbrush. So I just used one of these, you know, calligraphy brushes and dipped it in my black ink and just went to town without lifting the brush. And then I even managed to give you a little MO at the very bottom there. But you can replace that with your art. It's just an example. So these were my tools: charcoal, well, Stabilo pencil. It's like charcoal, and then watercolor using the calligraphy paintbrush, and then my fountain pens. I like fine and medium point. Of course, this was more or less to get some of the paint on here, but also to just clean the pages. My antique or French paintbrushes that I got from Catherine at French Biaudou a long time ago. Some more art just to inspire you, again, replaceable. Some of my attempts at mark making using my mom's interior house paint. Some random bits of Strathmore. I think this feels like the sketch paper or drawing paper. So in the kit, I'm going to include some of the watercolor from Bao. This is really thick, cold pressed. You're going to have some black Canson drawing paper in the kit. Printmaking, so some of the paper in here might be that, but then the primary paper that I like using is Strathmore's drawing sheets. So these will be, a few pages will be included in your little envelope. Nice flat layout for your own work. my attempt at mark making for you. I won't comment on that. You could tear that out and do your own mark making here, because you'll see her mark making is pretty awesome. It's pretty bold. It's black and white, and she has a lot of little ticks and some stitches. But I love her black India ink and her charcoal paints. I don't have any of that, but I did have my ink, and that's how I got those bold flowers. So use what you have. My initials, just so you know who made it. Spots. It looks like there's a flower there. I don't know how that got there. I think that's just natural staining from how Sigita rested and did her work on this eco dye here. But you could just cover using the antique photos that I've included. This is some of that antique pottery book page, and I just simply took my charcoal pencil. I just barely taped this down so you could replace it, but when I was looking at this paint mark, it looked like a earthenware pot to me, and something about, you know, it looked like something a bonsai could grow out of, or something that you're starting from seed, but you could replace that. A lot of little spots where you could do your own little sketches. That's just from the front side of that flower, but just like in this envelope here where I gave you a lot of these little squares, you know, you could do a lot of these grids with your own little prints on the Strathmore drawing paper or watercolor paper. Here's a dry flower, the sack that it was originally in when I purchased it. And then this is actually information about the pottery that was in that antique book, or porcelain, excuse me. So I just made it into a little pocket that you could slip little flowers into. So this is a dried flower. You could replace it or add more of your own. How beautiful would that be to have your own dried flower bouquet in this book? And you'll notice the gaps here, since I don't have any of the mull or the muslin in between my open spines. So it gives you a nice gap, and then make sure that your art journal is flat. This is the book plate that came from the Antique Porcelain History, or History of Pottery and Porcelain. And it's a Japanese teapot, and I just love how bold and black that is. And it could really stand up to whether it's your artwork, mark making, or how awesome would that look, you know, with some of these, if you have some mark making over here on this side. Nice layout. Here's this 1833 document here. It's actually pretty large, so I tore a page out and included it as one of your layouts here. It's going to look right side up, French on one side, but then upside down. I think it's the way they folded the document itself, obviously. But it's still beautiful script, and it would still look beautiful up against your artwork sitting on that page or collaged on that page. I made you a concertina art journal or art book using an authentic I think it's antique. It's a real postcard from Egypt. So I used tracing paper on the back to adhere it so that I wouldn't cover who it came from and the date. Although it's hard to see the date, but I thought it was 1930 also. But anyway, it's pretty close to antique, and it's from Egypt. And then there's the full image of it on the front. And that's using the Strathmore drawing paper. So as you can see, even though it's a little bit thicker, the journal itself still isn't too full. Again, more of my mom's paint colors. A lot of blank coffee stained layouts. Some more of the grid areas. You could either draw your own boxes or add your own boxes or cut up. You know, this one here where you just use anything to mark that could make a mark. Cut that up into little squares and create your 9-grid layout of flowers or plants or your favorite things. Again, if there's too much painted area instead of gesso, obviously you could layer your books or any other of your artwork in there. You might see that there's some faint brush strokes here that actually came from the painted side where I painted using my mom's paint. It actually picked up on the brush strokes and left sort of a stain right there. It's kind of fun. This is replaceable art, so it's just my attempt at some of the Renee Mueller figures. And of course, some of you know that I like to do or create fashion sketches. I'm still practicing. I also watch Krista Irene art on YouTube as well. I like her style. It's just casual, whimsy, fun. I'm not sure if this is a Renee Mueller layout, but you could see her figure that she teaches in one of the courses, and then I'm not sure if that's actually, I find a lot of things on Pinterest that I love, and so when I'm stuck for ideas on how to layer, I'll go there and then print out my favorites page, more of Sagita's iron rusted pages. This page I like here. I put some of the rice paper, which is also in your kit. You could glue this rice paper down after you either put some flowers or sketches behind here, or leave it, or you could create your dried flower layout. I had one from Pinterest. Did I see? Yeah, here. So see how they have it on little sheets of rice paper, or maybe that's vellum. But I just love that look. You could even add a little more rice paper right on top, and then have your little specimens charted out or sketched out. More coffee stained, more of the 1700s ledger. I was using the paint as glue, so I was taking some of my favorite papers there. I'll show you what's in here. This is your ephemera, or your art paper pack that I'll include with it. So these are the book pages from the Antique Porcelain and Pottery art book. And I love sketching on this, with especially dark charcoal pencil. As you can see, I was practicing. I even laid down some paint and then roughed it up a little bit, and the charcoals still took to it nicely. My favorite ranunculus and just some really messy art, which I'm totally embracing. This is one of the pages again from Modern France, one of their jars. But how awesome would that be to tear a little bit of that page and just replace, you know, any of the painted grid marks that you don't like, or include it. This is the architect drawing on the thinner paper. In Jeannie's class, she does mark making on not architect, but maybe engineering paper. So you could do some black mark making on that, some extra tracing paper, eco dyed leaf. You could probably cut this up in 4 or even 9 squares. You'll have a couple of sheets of this rice paper or mulberry. This might be more mulberry paper because of the fibers. And again, you could do something like this with your specimens with this kind of paper. Some of this isn't Valhong's watercolor paper. It's cold pressed, pretty thick. You'll have my favorite watercolor. This is the, what is it? The French one, starts with an A. A little sleep deprived lately. Anyway, I think most of us know about this watercolor paper. Here's the Strathmore drawing paper. And then here is a piece. I've already scanned it, so I don't feel bad about sharing it, of my parents' house designs when they had a remodel 24 years ago now, maybe 22 years ago now. And it's on this really thick, dirtied up paper because the contractors were actually using it to build out a portion of their house. So that's coming with you. You could do your mark making, or you could just include little pieces of it. It's the black Canson art paper. And then this is your printmaking paper by Strathmore. And I think that's it. Yeah. So basically I'm giving you enough art paper to get started and add your own art. So a little bit more of the coffee stain papers, which have lovely marks already. And then this was one of my attempts at adding a big swatch mark. Ooh, French antique fabric there. Original book pages as a layout. So you could, easily create your own work. You could chop something up like this and have it as a layout. And then there's the back page. And this was one of my practice. Don't lift your ink pen or paint pen to draw. And then there's the back. It's pretty raw. So because this is very loose, again, you could add a back cover end papers just to help reinforce the tape and protect the tape, or leave it. And then that's the original book mull or muslin that the spine was floating over. I left it because of the rust stains, and you could see the grid pattern of the mull that they used. If for any reason this doesn't feel good in your hand, or it feels a little flimsy, you could always layer extra fabric over that, but it would cover it up and cover some of the history up, but that's okay. Or in my case, if it was me, I would have probably put a piece of leather right there, just based on how I hold things and how I like to put things in my, throw things in my purse. So anyway, thanks for joining me for that really fast flip through. I should hopefully have this up, or just reach out to me via Instagram at Jeanne Oliver if you're interested in this little art book. And some of the ephemera, the pieces that are included with it to help you get started. I just love Jeanne Oliver's new course, Gathered. So hopefully you'll be able to participate and have fun. Thanks, and I'll talk to you soon.